Okay, so we're going to take a look at how we can now leverage CSS to manipulate how the lists are rendered on the screen. So we'll head up here again into our embedded style sheet. Again, I've only embedded it for convenience sake. I would move this into its own external CSS file. So the first thing, we're going to take a look at the bullets, or the list markers. So I'm going to, here I'm going to add a selector for the unordered list, the UL element. I'll open that rule up. Close it out right away. And so the default for an unordered list is a disk, is what we call it, or a solid dot circle. So we manipulate that by applying the list style type. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. List style type, and the possible there's a number of different possibilities. So we can have, if we're going to stick with a bullet type marker, you can have a square, a circle, which is an open circle, a disk, which is a closed circle. You can also add decimal digits, so you can make it appear like an ordered list if you wish. I'm not sure why you would. You can do lower alpha, upper alpha, Armenian, Greek, Roman. So you can do all kinds of things. So we're going to change it right now from the default, which is a disk, to a square. Save that. We'll head over to our browser. I'll open up the page. Maybe we can open a recent page rather than monkey around with my file system. Cancel out of this. Recently closed. Open history. Navigation lists. No. No, I'm gonna have to open the file. So off we go to Chapter 11 lists. And so you can see the list markers are now square. So we can also set them up to circle. Oops. So it's interesting to note that when you do that, this inherits. So when you have, so we look down here at the navigation list that we built earlier, the nested lists. No longer do you have differentiating bullet markers for list markers. Once you set that, it inherits. So you blow away the ability to have different ones based on your indentation. So those are all now circle. You can also turn the address how an ordered list is rendered. Of course, the ordered list, the list style type values for the OL are the same for both UL and OL. So we can instead of then having decimal, which is the default, we can go to say upper Roman, right? And so we can control that. Of course, we can also use different languages. Armenian, for example. Now, the interesting point here is also that I could, even though it's an ordered list, so or I could, if I want, oops, I could set that to disk and throw away those kind of numbers, whatever language they might be, and then of course it's visually transparent that this is an ordered list. I'm not sure why, but you may have a need to do that at some point. Now, the other thing too is to note is you can also, if you wish, display the list marker or bullet as an image. So I can say list for the ULs, for example, list style image. And I'll pass it a URL so we can then, and I like to quote the URL string, and I've got for you here images, and I've loaded in your example files a bullet_star.png. So this will cascade over the list style type. So this rule will trump this earlier circle rule. So for our ULs, we will then be allowed to apply images rather than the list markers provided by the browser. Another thing to recognize is that lists by default, since each of the LIs, the UL and the LIs are block model or display block, they will take their own line. They will be 100% of the width of their containing element. So they will stack vertically. If we wanted to display list items such that they were horizontal, I could say UL LI. So target the list items themselves. And what I'll do is I'll put a border around these, a 2-pixel solid border green around the LIs inside the unordered lists. And we'll take a look, and you can see what I mean when. So you can see that the list items are 100% of the width of their parent. In this case, it is and this tucks behind the floated image, but it will be in this case the main element, which is 100% of the width of its parent, which is the body, and of its parent, which is the HTML element. So if we wanted to arrange this horizontally, I would have to change how this from display block to display inline, so that frog, toad, and snail, in fact, sat side by each, much as words in a sentence. So to do that, I would change the display property. The default is block. I would simply change this to inline. Oops. Reload, and now all list items that are parents, that are children of a UL will be arranged horizontally. The width will be auto, so it will size to the content, and as such. The other option for that is if you wanted some of the box model controls, so you wanted them horizontally, but you wanted to be able to set things like width and height. Inline-block is well supported now, and that also gives you some of these other properties as well. So, and you can see with the structure down here, you can begin to see how that plays out in when you render these without having line breaks between them as display block. So they can be horizontal or vertical. Another thing we could do to arrange these, I'll comment this out first for a moment, we could simply float all of the LIs to the left or the right. And this is a little bit unintuitive, I would say. But if each of the list items are floating left, so the first one would float left, meaning all subsequent content would reflow up to the space now left over on the right. But since the subsequent content is another list item, it will sit there to the right, and then the following one will then arrange itself to the right of the now floated left second LI, and so on and so forth. So they percolate along until they're all arranged horizontally. So that we can see how that also allows you to arrange lists in a horizontal fashion. However, the problem now is because these are floated left, as soon as we end the UL, subsequent content, in this case, which is the ordered list, now flows up to take up this space here. So we need to, in fact, at the end of this, when we're done this list, we want to break to a new line for subsequent elements. And we would do that with the clear. So we would say, okay, well, at the end of this UL, in fact, there's an OL after this. So before we start any OL, we will clear. We'll make sure that we are clear of any floated elements previous on the left margin. So if I clear the OL, which is these here, they will instead of a semicolon. That will do it every time. So when I refresh this, the OL then clears the floated LIs over here and arranges itself on a new line. Floats and clears. So so you can, to arrange lists horizontally, you can display them in line, you can float them to the left, or use display inline block, all of which have good support in modern browsers. So there you go. There are some of the things that you can do with lists. Of course, LIs and DLs, DTs, and DDs are also all block level, so you can control all of the standard box model things like height, width, padding, border, and margins. So really giving you a whole heck of a lot of control in terms of layout. I hope that was informative.